equal money and collective responsibility, I am going to reference a case that is currently going on, which has got a heading of Killer Dad Back in Court. A moment of indescribable madness drove a father to kill his little girl. Now, this is the case of Darcy Freeman, that died on January 2, 2009. So, let's have a look at it. 2007, the parents were separated, and an ugly divorce with a nasty custody battle was underway, with lots of people involved in the makeup of this relationship. Now, on the morning of Darcy's death, the dad stopped in the middle of the Westgate Bridge. He got out of the car, took Darcy under his arm. He walked to the side of the bridge and calmly, without any facial expression, almost robotically, lifted her over the edge and dropped her to her death 60 meters down in the river. Now, a few questions is relevant here. Why is those that are collectively responsible for this event, that are collectively responsible to have identified the back chat during this whole time, why are they not on trial as well? Like, for instance, it is said in the article that the point that finally drove Arthur Freeman to this act was the outcome of the family court, in particular the role of the clinical psychologist played in determining the custody arrangements. He felt that it has been set up, and the clinical psychologist is there to protect or to consider everyone's part in it. Yet the clinical psychologist is not on trial. So is the politicians and the lawmakers and the judges, all part of the relationships that led to the death of Darcy. Yet they are not on trial. The collective event is not being investigated. Only the individual that did the act. So now you have no actual consequence, you have no corrective action, you have no clear understanding of what really happened, and therefore you can't prevent this event from happening again. This is the whole point about so-called individual rights and individual responsibility, which is not valid in a world where everything is based on relationships and on collective action, collective consequence. The same happens with everything else in this world. There should be collective responsibility and collective consequence in every event. The reason why half the world can live in poverty is because there is no collective responsibility, and the individual can wash their hands like the mythological or not, Judas. They can wash it and say, it's not me, or they can do it like Cain and Abel, where they can say, it's not me, I'm not my brother's keeper. But you are part of the collective event. You're part of the relationships that form the event. The politicians, the lawyers, the administrators, They are not on trial for the killings and the murders and the deaths. And let's have a look at suicide, for instance. A person commits suicide because they're in debt, and the court took a decision that they must lose their house and everything, and they suddenly can't support their children anymore. The person commits suicide. Is that suicide or is that murder? If one go and investigate the collectivism, the collective relationships that form the event, you'll see it's not suicide. It was murder. It was driving the person to commit murder, kill themselves. And this is being allowed in the current system because there's no responsibility for the collective relationships that form events. And equal money, obviously, many of these events will be prevented by the very principle that there is enough for a person and they do not have to be manipulated and being driven to death by the system and the people that represent the system. Obviously, people representing the system also wash their hands of it and claim they're not responsible, they're just acting on behalf of the system. It's like this whole blindless system of no responsibility, while in fact everyone is responsible. They're part of the relationships that form the outcomes, and therefore they are materially responsible, and that responsibility carries over to the so-called law of consequence, law of karma. That means you actually pay for that at the moment of death. You are not just responsible for your direct actions. You are also at the moment of your death measured as to the role you played in all relationships of every event on earth, and that determines whether you continue or not. And now obviously religion has become something that made people not consider a responsibility in their relationships, but made the whole point to be just individual responsibility, when obviously, commonsensically, if you do the math and the science, that is not how it works. You are in fact responsible for everything that you took part in, that you had a relationship with. The very world system, you have a relationship in, therefore you are responsible. And for those that believe in God, an almighty God, certainly you can't claim that this is not so, because you can't claim that God is stupid like you're stupid. God is in fact then aware of the mathematical relationships and how these points accumulate into the events. God is the one then that would have placed in place the equality equations. That means the mathematical way that relationships form outcomes. And therefore, no one can wash their hands and say it's the will of God. It's not. It is the will of the participant in the relationship that exists in this world. You have made the choice to create things the way it is. God has got nothing to do with it. The only reason why you're not willing to see this is because you're scared. You fear that if the collective point is shown, it will show your responsibility. Therefore, you want to turn away and just work at your final individual action. But that is not the true point. The true point is the actual relationships. It is the point where it can be changed. Now, an equal money system and an equal life system will correct this system so that one take responsibility and be responsible for all relationships you are parting. And that the whole idea of this individual blindness is stopped, so that the freedom of choice is taken to the point where responsibility exists, and not to the point where the individual is alone at the final point of action, where the whole movement of the event as call it an energetic flow, because it's all the relationships is played out, so now it's just the final point where it is overwhelming and the individual ends up, for instance, stealing food in a shop because they can't feed their children, or they commit suicide. At that stage, the motion of the event is already at its conclusion, because all the parts that created this event and the motion for it, nobody took responsibility for. So now you have a complete upside down system where no action is taken where the event can be prevented, and all the action is taken at the final point, and the blame and the responsibility is shifted to the final actual visible act. But the invisible part, where the relationships were formed, that caused the motion, that caused the event, you can call it events motion, there is no responsibility. And then it is said, apparently, that's collectivism, that's communism. You are responsible as a community. You are responsible as a collective for every event in this world, because you are part of the event. You play a role. You are responsible. You are the creator of this world. And that is what Equal Life Party is here to bring correction to. That is why the equal money system will be here to initially sort out the level of inertia, the level of stupidity of the human race, and allowing the events to take place without taking responsibility. If you are ready to understand what equality means, and to take responsibility for all relationships in your life, and you're ready to become self-honest and say, I can't blame the individual for the collective movement of all people in the relationships, for the collective movement that drives them to the actions they have to take to survive. I have to take responsibility and help my fellow brother and sister, my fellow man, to bring about a new system. Then destiny is for you. Then equal money is for you. Then equal life is for you. And those that scream that we are apparently acting as if we're a cult or communists or fascists, have a look. What we are saying is the real truth about how things actually work scientifically, mathematically, how events are created. We are here standing and speaking up about the collective responsibility, also your responsibility, and you are just abusing because you are protecting your right to abuse. You're protecting also your fear for being caught out, for being part of this absolute mess that exists on earth. Why? So that you can abuse. What else do you abuse? Why do you allow the abuse in this world? It's because you are abusing. The abuser always allows the abuse, and therefore will fight for the right to abuse, because they want to abuse more. They regard the human being as weak. The human being isn't weak. At the moment when all the collective motion comes together into an action in this world, that moment it is overwhelming, and very few human beings has got the power to stop. And much of that has been automated now as backchat in the human's mind. And that backchat become collective, like in the case of the dad of Darcy Freeman, where he eventually, through the backchat, will become completely possessed by his own mind. And he will act like a robot on the energetic outflow of all the events. But he's not alone responsible for Darcy Freeman's death. Everyone that played the role that caused the backchat to exist are collectively responsible. And in an equal life system, there will be proper care taken, and everybody will be jointly responsible. And we will stop this absolute nonsense. Parents that are emotionally traumatized at the time of divorce should not be the only ones that take care of the children. There must be help, support to make sure the children is protected from the possible events that the mind can create as the backchat forms entities. And these entities must be sorted out. So there must be an emotional support to make sure that no abuse is created in the minds of those that end up at the final decision. You cannot make decisions that is best for all using emotion. Emotion is a dangerous thing. Those that promote emotion have no clue what they're doing and are collectively responsible for all abuse that happens in the name of emotion in this world. Those that do not want to take responsibility because they have ulterior motives with emotion, mostly about money and about sex. If they're self-honest, if you watch them, if you find a person promoting emotion, go and stay with them for 3 months in their home and you'll see it's about sex and money. That's why they promote emotion. They will not tell you the truth because they want to control events where they can get some form of payback or payoff or reward, which is always money or sex. So, join destiny. Let's get this sorted out. This is a massive point. The collective responsibility of the individual in the direction and the way the human race is existing. That will change with equality and equal money and with the Destiny Eye process. Join us. Fortunately, those that are possessed by ego will not be able to join us yet. Only those that actually are starting to realize themselves, getting their asses out of the murky water of their individual ego and send their ass to where it belongs, will be able to ascend to the task to bring about a new world in the physical reality and work together collectively as a group to bring an end to all the abuse that exists in this world. Join us.